Hi, everyone. We're back with Elena Brouwer. And Elena is an etiquette expert. She's a protocol expert, and she's the director of the International Etiquette Center. One of the things I want to ask you about, Elena, is a female boss. Is being a female boss a problem?
It is if you make it a problem. Some people do not have a lot of faith in female bosses. It's just a perception, unfortunately, that society has that women are not equal to men. I once heard somebody working for a woman say, I'm staying with this company because I want to learn from my boss. She is confident, she is humble, and she is the same all the time. She delegates, she trusts people, and she talks to the janitor the same way that she talks to the CEO. To me, that's a dream boss. But what do I hear
I was just going to
sometimes?
say, pretty good, yes.
Right, right. I hear, well, she's awfully mean, or she's very weak. She avoids conflict, so she's no good. Or then we have the one who is really, really mean. Think of Meryl Streep in The Devil Wears Prada. I have been a boss at one time or another for large groups of people because I was in the beauty industry before I decided to do etiquette and protocol full time. Like you say, in another life. And yes, sometimes a female boss needs to be a little tougher, and she should not get really chummy with some of the employees because your employees are your employees. They're not your friends. It becomes very
Well,
difficult.
I agree with you there. Yeah, I agree with you there. Absolutely. Absolutely. But let me ask you something. Do you find this is an interesting question? I'd love to get your opinion on this. Do you find that men have more problem with a female boss or women have more problem with a female boss?
In my opinion, women have more problem with female bosses.
I was going to say that too. I've had more women complain about their boss who's a woman than men. And I just wondered if you found the same thing. That's very interesting. Why do you think that is?
Because we are really, we're rather new at being bosses and or working for a female boss. So there is always a certain amount of jealousy. Who is she
Mm-hmm.
to tell me what to do? Or maybe she's one who came up the ranks and she used to be in the, you know, another job within the company, and all of a sudden she's the boss. So a lot of women resent having a female telling them what to do. Plus, one thing that I hear a lot is that sometimes female bosses don't help women come up the ladder.
Uh-huh. Yeah, that could be. But then again, I guess that's the same for male bosses too, you know. Um, there's a lot of people who are always afraid that somebody else is going to take their place. I really love women who promote other women or men, it doesn't matter, but promote other women who want people to bypass them. You know, want them to go on to fame and fortune because that shows what a great leader you are. So I think that's a fabulous thing. I mean, um, I would pride myself on something like that. So it's interesting how people do, you know, perceive all of these things. Um, what about the consequences of rude behavior in the workplace?
Well, the consequences are very clear. You lose business when you have rude people working. Uh, I, for myself, refuse to do business with somebody who's not going to treat me with respect or listen to my concerns. And let me tell you that this week I had that experience. I had to call the phone company and I needed to have the rep take me through some steps. Well, from the voice, I could tell it was a very young girl. I don't know what else she was doing, but every once in a while she would say, uh. And then I said, it seems to me we're going to have to escalate this to somebody else who can help me. She said,
Yeah.
I'll transfer you. She did, but nobody answered the phone at the other end. And then a recording came on and said that waiting time was 9 minutes. Well, I didn't have nine
Yeah, I
minutes to
love those
stay there.
calls.
So
Like
to
I have
me,
nothing to do for 9 minutes, right?
right,
Exactly.
right. And I was on my cell phone. I was doing something else. I wanted to get on the road to do something. It just doesn't work. So that kind of consequence of rude behavior is what's going to lose business. People are going to go someplace else. There there are so many places that you can go for whatever it is that you're looking for. A nail salon. I was going to a nail salon where they are from another culture, they speak a different language, and nobody would speak English. All the employees were talking to each other in their language. And I said to the boss, you know, you're probably having a good time talking among yourselves, but I don't appreciate it because I don't know what is being said. And she said, oh, I can't help it. Oh, yeah? Well, I can help it. I can help it. I went someplace else.
Right. Yeah, I do know that there are places, especially in Miami, where they say you have to speak English, and yet I know there are other places that everybody speaks Spanish. They also speak Creole, but mostly Spanish in businesses, and it's really interesting to see the reaction of people who are not bilingual and how they react to all of that. So
Right.
let me ask you something. Do you ask upper management to be part of your business workshops when you're hired, or do you go in just for the people that they want trained?
To me, it's very important that upper management participates. Why? Because they don't know what I am teaching them. How are they going to be able to be aware of the behaviors changing or not changing? And it's hard to monitor a progress. On the other hand, a lot of the upper management needs business etiquette. And that's part of the problem.
Mm-hmm.
It's not coming down from the top, so they have to learn. Also, I've had managers say to me, I don't have to sit through a dining tutorial. I've been eating all my life. And when I hear that, I said, well, you're probably eating wrong. But once they sit and I go over uh, simple things, I mean, really, how to hold the silverware and not to talk with your mouth full and when to stop eating, when to start eating, simple things like that. They come up to me and they said, oh, there is a lot to it. And again, who gets the benefit of things like that? Everybody. Because even when
Exactly.
I'm doing workshops for business, but the people who attend, they can carry that on to to their personal lives and even onto their children.
No question. I mean, absolutely no question. It, I think, if it's so funny, when I stop and think about how many times I say thank you in a day, I probably say it 12, 15 times. I mean, if anybody holds a door open for me, I say thank you. Even if I'm paying for a service, I say thank you to the person. It's just was instilled in me as I was growing up. And so I just think a lot of it comes from, your family and your background and how you've been raised and so forth. And I know that you think social manners outside of work are important? Where have you seen things outside of the work environment that drive you crazy?
Well, talking about thank yous, it annoys me to no end to say thank you to someone and for them to say no problem. That's not the
Hmm.
right answer. You know that, and I know that. So I turn around
Mm-hmm.
and say, oh, I didn't realize that there was a problem because they never
So
learn.
what should someone say? So what should someone say? Just you're welcome.
You're welcome, or it's my
Yeah.
pleasure, or I'm glad I could help you. Don't tell me no problem. That is so wrong. It's so wrong on so
Yeah,
many
and that's
levels.
very common, Elena. I think I hear that a lot when people say no problem. You're right. You're
I
right.
know, I know. And it's one of those things that phrases like that get into the culture, and more people are using it, that it gets to the point that you hear older people using it too. And where is this going? If we start using, that kind of language, it's not that I want to be picky about everything has to be just so. But what is so wrong about saying you're welcome? And what is so wrong
Exactly.
about saying thank you? You open a door for somebody. If I'm going someplace and I see somebody coming next to me, I don't care if it's a man or a woman, I hold the door. Just don't give me a dirty look like some people do. Just say thank you.
Exactly. Wow. Yeah.
You know, I
So
think that
tell us, yeah, tell us about
manners,
the workshops that you do.
well,
How long are the workshops? What do they consist of? How many different kinds do you have? Tell us a little bit about that.
Gail, it can be anywhere from a 1 day, what I call intensive, um, and emergency etiquette, when I get these phone calls from somebody who says, oh, you have to come in right away. We can't wait. So it could be a 1 day, but that's hard to do for a company because unless it's done on the weekend, not everybody can attend. But if it's a larger company, we can do, half of it in the morning and the other half in the afternoon. Many
So
companies.
why would someone call you and say this is an emergency?
Oh, because they just had a problem with a client because of one employee.
Ah,
I'll give you
okay.
that
Yeah.
happened to me recently. I was going on a trip out of the country. I was at the airport and I had a phone call from a big company that I have worked with before. And the person who called me, the HR person, said, you need to come in right away because we just hired a new receptionist and she is a nightmare. She's being so rude that we're getting complaints every single day. And I said, well, I'm sorry. I won't be back for a week. So they booked it for right after I would be coming back. So that's what I call emergency etiquette.
Okay, but don't you wonder, Elena, why they would hire somebody like that? I
You
mean, I
got
would think that most people that are hired on maybe a 30-day trial or probationary period, at which time you can terminate them without any real cause. But I mean, just the way someone might talk to you in an interview or even calling them on the telephone to see how they are, I would think that would be the thing that most companies would want to do.
I know, and that makes a lot of sense. But what happens? Sometimes they hire somebody because she is the niece of somebody who works there. And there is no need to
Ah,
do
well, that's, yeah.
training. Okay. What I do for some companies, and that's part of the workshops that I do, is to review the people who are going to get hired. They get,
Mm-hmm.
the company would go over the resume and this and that to see if they're qualified as far as what, for example, for attorneys. I work for a couple of companies at law firms, and whenever they're going to hire, they usually hire 3 or 4 people at a time. and then I interview the people after they have already been through the resume business with them. And I tell them, I recommend, say, this person is going to need some training. If you think that she or he has the, requirements, other than that, but that they need to take some training, and then we do the training before they start. Another way of doing it is to have a retreat. Some companies would get everybody. These are companies who have a little bit a bigger budget. We do a retreat for a couple of days, and it's fun because they can have a good time. We do a lot of uh, team exercises and all that. That's great. And then we have some where I go in for a couple of weeks because I need to train each little group individually. I cannot go into a company and tell everybody the same thing. So it's very customized. It depends on what their needs are and how big the company is.
Well, it's very interesting as to how all of this comes together. I think that uh, when people think of etiquette, they just think of it as a Miss Manners kind of thing, and they don't really understand the impact that it has on their business. And I would think that someone who says, we need to have this, we need someone like Elena to come in and show us what to do and how to do it, is very important. And the question I ask you is, do you do this just in the U.S. or do you do it all over the world?
Oh no, I do it all over the world. I mean,
So, what are
last
some of the differences? What are some of the differences in other countries from here in the U.S.?
the world has so many different cultures, but at the same time, you can group them. For example, last year I was working in Europe in the summertime. I went to 5 European countries, different presentations because there were different groups. The common language was English, of course, because in Europe almost everybody speaks English, and more so in business. And you have what I would call the continental culture, which would be the European culture, which is very similar to ours, because the founders of this country were from Europe. And then we have the Asian culture, completely different. So what happens? The people from Japan who are doing business with the United States, they need to know what our culture is. But if there is a company from here who has employees in Japan or in Singapore, then they have to learn what that culture is. The whole idea of learning about other cultures is not to offend. And
Interesting.
yeah, I'm working with the airport, Fort Lauderdale Airport, with the staff and the people who work there, 500 people. Not the airlines, although the airlines, we know they need it badly because they're getting in so much trouble. Oh boy. But the people working at the airport, maybe they know how to do something, but they don't, they many times are clueless as to what the different cultures are. And so I have to tell them this is what you can expect when you get a flight from Dubai, or if you get a flight from Argentina, because the people are going to have different ways of expressing themselves. Even the body language is going to be different. As you know, because you go to a lot of networking events, some people like to get up close and personal when they're speaking with you, and others are they need their personal space, so they don't want you anywhere near them. That's just one little thing that they need to learn.
What about the South American cultures?
Yes, and then the Spanish culture, there is a difference even when you say Spanish, South America. When you get right down to it, Gail, there is a difference between the Central American and the South Americans. Slight difference, but if you are going to be doing business with those countries, you need to know the nuances of what each country does and how they do business and so on. So it's to your advantage if you do anything. And sometimes we don't have to go to those countries because we have those people right here. In a company,
Right.
you get anybody from Haiti to Belize to any, a number of countries. Not to offend. That's the whole thing that I want to get the message across. It's not that you have to be perfect all the time, but mind your manners to the point that you're not offending people.
So let's talk about how to get in touch with you again. Do you want people to go just to your website, Elena, or do you want them to email you or call you? What's the best way to get in touch with you?
The best way is to email me because unfortunately I'm not available by phone all the time, although like you, I answer my phone calls as soon as
Right.
possible. But Elena at etiquettecenter.com, I get your email, then I have your email, and I can always set up a time to be able to speak. And of course, because I do a lot of international business, I use Zoom, Skype, Hangout, you name it, whatever people have available, we use it. I was just doing something with some people from African countries who were here from the State Department, and we had to do it by Skype because there was no other way to do it. So email is the best way.
Fantastic. Fantastic. Well, so let me just say, I want to make sure everybody gets it again. It's Elena, which is ELENA at etiquette, ETIQUETTE center, CENTRE.com. I think that I think if they want to reach you, that's the best way to do it. So that sounds fantastic. Now we've only got 2 minutes left. So is there anything that you want to talk about that we haven't mentioned, Elena?
Well, I also want, just in case there is one of those cases of emergency etiquette, they can always call me on my cell, which is 305-332-4527.
Fantastic. Okay.
I want to leave you with just the idea that good manners are, they're so priceless that when you give a good impression to somebody about who you are by showing your good manners, it means everything. People remember, and believe me, a good impression is so much better than a bad one.
Oh, there's no question about that. That's for sure. I know that it certainly is a part of everything that we do in everyday life. People are judging us all the time. So if you have an emergency and you need to get a hold of somebody like Elena, remember her number is 305-332-4527. And if you really want to get some handle on what's right and what's wrong, maybe you need to take one of her programs or, just find out more about what she offers. That would be absolutely fabulous. Well, I want to thank you so much for being with us today, Elena. You've been a revelation in terms of what etiquette is. It's amazing to me that more people aren't tuned into it, but that's the way it goes. So, I certainly understand it. And, but thanks for being with us. And I know people have really enjoyed what you had to say today. Thank you, Elena, so much for being with us.
I thank you, Gail. Thank you for having me in your program.